onions. My neighbors have to be drooling at this point. And hey, try a little. You start to become a much better cook when you understand what things taste like at certain stages. Delicious. Now let's add the celery and carrots into the pot with the onions and give it a gentle season of coarse salt. Maybe just a quarter teaspoon or so, and again, this will season everything. It'll help release moisture for a better brownie, and that moisture, again, will help you scrape the onion fond. Trifecta, son.
Now for all these salt additions, let me explain really quick. In the end, you'll actually end up using less salt because what happens is it will concentrate down and intensify the flavor so it's perfectly seasoned. This is a much better technique instead of just coming at the end and dumping in like 4 or 5 tablespoons of salt to making sure it tastes good. Do this instead.
We're going to cook this for about 10 or so minutes while occasionally stirring it or until it starts to lightly brown up and look just like this. The original recipe mentions browning the sofrito as being a crucial step to making this more flavorful. Okay, at this point, I want to offer up a small addition, but only if you want it and love it. I've got about a half cup of dried porcini mushrooms that need to be reconstituted with some hot water. Even Artusi is quoted in his book as saying, if you add some dried mushrooms, first soften in hot water and then cook briefly in the sauce, you will do well. So at this stage is when you would add those strained porcinis, but unfortunately for me, my family aren't huge mushroom fans, which is, well, dang awful for me. However, you feel free, and if you do, let me know how you like it. Alright, so let's add the garlic in and cook it just until it becomes fragrant, which only takes about 30 to 45 seconds. Now at this point, let's have some fun and do a quick wine deglaze, and since this is classic Tuscan recipe, Chianti is preferred wine.
And a nice Chianti.
That's right, Hannibal, and however, any dry red wine will work, so just use what you have, it'll still be incredible. Now pour in maybe just 2 to 3 tablespoons and then let's scrape up all the goodness in the pan. One of my old culinary school classmates was all about deglazing with wine as much as possible in the same recipe. He's right, it's better. But let's add in another step with 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. We're going to pince it and cook it for 3 to 4 minutes until it becomes a rust-like color. This will deepen the umami flavors even more and give our final sauce some great viscosity. Once it hits that rusty color step, let's add a bit more wine. In fact, 1 cup worth. We're going to cook it down until the amount of liquid is reduced by about 1/2 and you'll notice it gets pretty thick. Perfect. Next, I'm going to pour in 4 cups of good beef stock or brodo. I've got a great homemade recipe if you want to check those out.
So in early Tuscan recipes like pre-19th century, braising with tomatoes really wasn't a thing. So you could actually skip using this and just use the tomato paste and then double up on the beef stock. But San Marzano's, it's going to add a lot of acidity. It's going to add some richness and a whole lot of umami to the final product. So for me, it's going to be better. You should do it.
I usually just crush these with my hands until they're into small pieces like this. Then add them straight to the pot and be sure to scrape out all that tomatoey goodness. I'll even swish a 1/4 cup of water around in the can and get that in there too. Why not? Now we're almost ready to start braising, but first we have to add some herbs to the pot, and I've got 1 sprig of fresh thyme, rosemary, sage, and parsley, and then 1 dried bay leaf. I'm just going to tie a few knots around them with some butcher's twine.
Now, the main reason we do this is so that it's really easy to fish out in the end. And however, you can for sure use dry herbs, a great option, and will still be incredible. Just remember just to use what you have. The result, still phenomenal. You can absolutely do this.
And I'm adding those herbs right to the pot along with a season of coarse salt and freshly cracked pepper. And hey, let's not forget about our crispy pancetta lardons. Those are going in there as well. And let's give it a quick stir and be sure to try a little. It should be pretty dang flavorful at this point. This is the liquid that our beef is going to be braising in, so it should be very tasty. Okay, let's slide the beef in and all its juices in there and pop on a lid, and on 325 degrees F convection on or 350 degrees F no convection, add it to the lower middle rack, and we're going to slow braise this for about 3 hours. After all, stracotto means overcooked or long cooked, and that is the goal. We want this to be fork tender. And in the meantime, while this cooks, you can dream up your favorite dish to serve this on. Maybe more modern approach with some creamy mashed potatoes, or perhaps Artusi's favorite, which would be risotto. Or hey, how about keep it real authentic with some fresh pasta? Whatever you go with, make sure it's ready to roll after about 3 hours of braising because it's go time. Break out the charcuterie, and oh my gosh, the smells in here just ridiculous. What I'm going to do is just briefly set it to the side on a plate just to show you a little something something, and let's just make sure we're at that perfect fork tender stage, and yep, we're there.
And I really just can't say enough. It smells incredible in here, and it's just so good. And to this day, after all my years in the restaurant industry and around food, I still actually prefer a slow-cooked piece of beef like this More so than any 2-temperature steak out there. It's more flavorful, it's more juicy, it's more tender, it's more succulent, and because of procedures and techniques like this is what you get. And honestly, it's making a really strong push to seriously be on my menu at the new restaurant.
Okay, now add the beef to a separate pot, and I'll explain what we're going to do here in just a second. But first, strain our braising liquid through a chinois or a fine mesh strainer into a container. Don't forget to pull out that little herb bundle. Then, using a spatula or a ladle, press down and push through as much liquid as possible. That's gold right there. But for all the leftover veg, pancetta, and loose herbs in the chinois, we're not done with that yet. Let's transfer it over to a blender, and then taking about a cup or so of that jus, let's just add it to the blender so that the mixture can blend with ease. Now, since this is hot, once you add on the main lid, remove that center cap and replace it with a kitchen towel so that the steam can escape, or else this thing's going to blow up and you're going to be cursing my name. I'm going to blend everything until it's completely smooth, just like this. Let's head back over to that cutting board, and before we make our sauce, let's take out a ladle or two of that jus and just pour it over the braised chuck roast to keep it moist, and pop on a lid and let it rest while we wrap up everything else. And at this point, I'm going to pour the sauce into the original braising pot along with our pureed veggies. This is going to add richness and will emulsify with the fat and the collagen in the braise, giving it a silky, almost demi-glace texture without adding any starch. This is supposed to be how the sauce is thickened. There's no roux, no slurries, nothing's going in there. Now let's add it back to the burner over medium heat and stir it until it's combined, and cook it down for just about 5 to 7 minutes. And I can't tell you how much more flavor that puree will add. It's complete concentration of deliciousness, and you use everything in this recipe. Just look at the consistency of it, a truly perfect nappe sauce. And of course, as I was always taught, finish off everything with butter, and in this case, 2 to 3 tablespoons will do. All right, let's bring this home. As I mentioned, one of the traditional ways would be serving this over pasta. So add some of the sauce along with maybe a bit of the starchy pasta water, and of course, the cooked pasta, and toss it until it's combined, and add a few chunks of that braised beef over top.
And even though the sauce and the techniques are a bit different, this is how my buddy James over at Sip and Feast likes to serve this. And you should absolutely check out his channel and of course this recipe. And I like it. I do. But honestly, this is how I prefer it.
Polenta, as the sort of creamy starch underneath, reigns supreme for me. It's so easy to make, it's cheesy, buttery, all the things, and you can check out my video on how to make it at the above link. Now add a big old scoop of it to a bowl or plate, take a nice sized chunk of the beef and add it to the top, and then pour on a good amount of that ridiculously flavorful sauce. Hit it with some parsley, and we could be good here. Or if you want a little veg on the side, try it with my sauteed broccoli. It's dang good. Regardless, let's get a verdict.
And now, you've got to try seriously one of my favorite comfort food dishes of all time. A very simple, delicious vegetable beef soup. I've got a great video waiting for you. I'll see you there. That was immediately with the polenta. Oh my. Dude. Taking both. Taking both.